Have you ever wondered why it feels like the world is run by billionaires? Why the gap between the ultra-rich and everyone else seems to be getting wider every single day? The answer isn't just luck or hard work. It's the result of a deliberate 40-year experiment that reshaped our entire world. An experiment that started not in a lab, but in the halls of power, with two leaders who decided to bet everything on a radical new idea. This is the story of how that bet created the economy we live in today. The 1970s were a time of crisis. Economies were stagnating, inflation was soaring, and the old system seemed broken. In the United States, people waited in long lines for gasoline. In Britain, constant strikes brought the country to a standstill. The post-war dream of steady growth and shared prosperity was fading. Amid this chaos, a group of economists at the University of Chicago, led by Milton Friedman, were waiting. For decades, they had been developing a theory that was the complete opposite of the mainstream. They believed the problem wasn't the market. The problem was the government getting in the way. Their solution, free the market completely, cut taxes, slash regulations, and let competition reign supreme. For years, these ideas were considered extreme on the fringe. But as the crisis deepened, the fringe started to look like the future. And then, two figures rose to power who would turn this theory into reality: Margaret Thatcher in the UK and Ronald Reagan in the United States. They weren't just politicians, they were true believers. Thatcher famously declared, "There is no such thing as society. There are individual men and women, and there are families." Reagan echoed this sentiment, stating in his inaugural address, "Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem." They saw the free market not just as an economic tool, but as a moral force for freedom and individual responsibility. And so the great transformation began. What did this look like in practice? It was a revolution from the top down. First came massive tax cuts, especially for corporations and the wealthy. The theory was that this wealth would trickle down to everyone else. Then came deregulation. Rules that had been in place for decades to control banks, protect the environment, and ensure worker safety were systematically dismantled. The market, they argued, could regulate itself. Finally, privatization. Huge state-owned industries, from British Telecom and British Airways to railways and water supplies, were sold off to private investors. The idea was to make them more efficient and competitive. This wasn't just happening in the US and UK. Through powerful institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, this model, often called the Washington Consensus, was exported around the globe. Countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia were often required to adopt these free market policies in exchange for loans. The 40-year experiment had gone global. So what is the legacy of this grand experiment? For some, it created immense wealth. The 1980s and 90s saw a boom in the financial sector, and the rise of globalization created vast new markets and incredible fortunes. But the promised trickle-down effect never quite materialized for everyone else. Instead, we saw a dramatic rise in inequality. The share of wealth held by the top 1% soared to levels not seen since the 1920s. Then came the 2008 financial crisis, a direct result of deregulated banks taking massive unchecked risks. The global economy was brought to its knees, and ordinary taxpayers had to bail out the very institutions that caused the crash. In the wake of that crisis, a new kind of billionaire emerged, the tech titan. Companies like Amazon, Google, and Meta, built on the principles of minimal regulation and global reach, amassed power and wealth that rivaled entire nations. Today, we live with the consequences: precarious gig economy jobs, underfunded public services, and a sense of a system rigged in favor of the super-rich. The experiment succeeded in unleashing the market, but it also unleashed forces that now seem beyond our control. So the big question is, can we escape the experiment, or is this just the way the world works now? All over the world, new ideas are bubbling up. Economists are questioning the old dogmas and exploring new ways to build a fairer, more stable economy. There's growing talk about stakeholder capitalism, where companies are responsible not just to shareholders, but to their workers, communities, and the environment. We're seeing renewed calls for strengthening unions, investing in public goods like education and healthcare, and fairly taxing extreme wealth to fund those investments. People are starting to realize that the economy isn't a force of nature, it's a set of rules. And if we made the rules once, we can change them again. The experiment doesn't have to be permanent. For 40 years, we've lived inside a story that told us greed is good, competition is everything, and the market knows best. But what if that was just one chapter in a much longer story? What if we have the power to write the next one? The challenges are huge, but the first step is recognizing that the world we live in was built by choice, not by fate. And that means we have a choice in what we build next. Thank you so much for watching. If this video made you think, please consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into the ideas that shape our world. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think the future of our economy should look like?